Hi, everyone. Welcome to this webinar, Engaging Your Campus in the Pitt University Network Challenge for 2021. In 2020, Pitt UN's second year, 42 proposals from 28 institutions were awarded a total of $4.4 million in grant funds. And we're doing this so that we can repeat that level of success. This year, as you know, the Pitt UN Challenge is prioritizing projects that center the needs of communities who have historically been denied access to new technologies or have been systematically left out of conversations at these intersections that we work on, which is technology and policy, and who have been denied opportunities to join the technology workforce. So we're making this event so that you can have a little bit more information on past grantees. And I just want to remember that applications are due on July 15th. And if the application is successful, New Venture Fund will notify the grant recipients of their upcoming award by October 2021. So today I have the privilege of talking to some of our 2020 Network Challenge grantees and asking them a couple of questions that will hopefully help you, the new applicants, get a successful application. Before I introduce our panelists, though, let me remind you that you can drop questions in the Q&A and the chat, and we will be actively monitoring them. We want to hear from you as much as you can, so please keep the questions going. And also, we will be making note of those questions so that our team can either answer them directly via email or by updating the FAQs from our website. I'm dropping in the chat the email that we have been using for all application questions. So please, again, drop it on the chat, send us an email. We want to hear from you. To get us started, I'm quickly going to go over our panelist list and briefly introduce myself. My name is Alberto Rodriguez. I'm the Senior Program Manager at Pitt UN here in New America. I have with me Deidre Mulligan, a professor from the School of Information, Faculty Director of the Berkeley Center for Law and Technology at the University of California, Berkeley. I have Brian Sinclair, Associate Dean for Public Services at Georgia State University Library. I have Carlos Canatios, Chair Engineering Tech at Miami-Dade College and Innovation Board for the City Coral Gables. I also have Mona Sloan, a Senior Research Scientist from NYU Center for Responsible AI, and a fellow and organizer of the NYU Institute for Public Knowledge, also at NYU. And lastly, I have Ryan Watkins, PhD, a professor from George Washington University. They're all directly connected to one of the grants that were winners of the 2020 challenge. And we will be asking them a couple of questions. But first, I want to start with an elevator pitch. So let me start with Mona. Could you give us the elevator pitch for your grant?
Sure, no pressure. All right. So the project that I'm leading together with Matt Stetler, who is at NYU Stern, which is our business school, is a public interest technology convention and career fair, which is a virtual hands-on event for professionals, researchers, and particularly students who are interested in creating a better tech, that is the name of the event, through really pushing technology that is in the public interest. It's going to happen on October 14 and 15. We have keynotes, fire presentations, workshops, case study competitions, roundtables, panels. We have a virtual job board, virtual booths, a book fair, and all sorts of a hackathon, all sorts of things that are going on. This will be open to all of the Pitt UN members, students, and faculty. Watch out for our call for participation, which will go out very soon.
Thank you. Keeping it short, I like it. Let me turn it out to Deidre. Would you talk to us a little bit about your product?
Sure. The title of our project is Algorithmic Justice at UC Berkeley, Cultivating Public Interest Technology Scholars and Career Pathways. And it's been a real pleasure for Jenna Burrell, my faculty colleague at the iSchool, and I, who run the Algorithmic Fairness and Opacity Working Group at the School of Information, to partner with colleagues at the D-Lab, which provides hands-on social science practitioners with data science support and research design support, and CalNERDS, which stands for New Experience for Research and Diversity in Science, which supports undergraduate students from non-dominant backgrounds to cultivate a pipeline for diverse undergraduate public interest technology scholars at Berkeley. And we're doing that through hands-on workshops, public lectures, lunch talks, and internships. And by centering issues of justice rather than technology or specific approaches and methods from STEM fields, this program is developing and training a really diverse cohort of undergraduate scholars with the knowledge and skills to create, use, assess, and critique technologies in service of the public interest.
It's so exciting to see this kind of racial diversity in our projects. Thank you. Brian, let me tap you in.
So, hi, thank you, Alberto. Thank you, New America, Pitt UN colleagues. Thanks to your generous support, we have been able to launch the Public Interest Data Literacy Initiative at Georgia State University with several other university partners. And public interest data literacy, the initiative is called PIDLit. So you can find us hashtag GetPIDLit or on Twitter at GetPIDLit. Our new website will be launching later this summer. But what PIDLit is, it's an opportunity for the library to really focus on first-year students and underrepresented groups around data literacy and encouraging them, opening their minds and broadening their horizons to data careers that make a difference. So data careers in the public sector, data careers in the public interest. But we've done a lot of work at Georgia State University and the library promoting data literacy already. It tends to be with our upperclassmen and women in our majors, but we are now looking at that first year student and even looking at the pipeline coming into that first year to turn them on to data literacy and maybe open them up to possible careers. So we look forward to rolling out some of these modules, workshops, and furthering this in the fall. And we do plan to apply for year 3, 2021 funding to continue this great project. So thanks.
Perfect. That's perfect to hear. Carlos, could you help us with your project?
Thank you, Alberto. Thank you all. Oh, wow.
It seems that we cannot hear Carlos right now, so I'm going to turn it over to Ryan once we figure this out. So Ryan, can you help us with your project?
Oh, thanks so much. And so our project started before the project, actually. We have an informal meetup group that meets on Fridays at GW. We call it GW Coders, and it was started by a colleague in engineering management and I a few years back. And we just discuss coding issues with STEM and non-STEM students. And so we were meeting on Fridays and looking at how this could really become a catalyst for increasing the use of coding and other technologies across the campus, both from our engineering perspectives as well as from our social science. So when we applied last year for Pitt UN, we wanted to expand that. And we recognized early on that a lot of the students who were engaging with us were taking their first coding courses, whether it was Python, R, C++. But then after the course ended, they didn't really know what to do next or how to advance their skills to the next level. So part of our Pitt UN application was to start an internship program to give undergrads who have taken their initial coding courses, but maybe haven't found ways to apply it, to work with faculty who are looking at data sets that they might be struggling with or trying to collect data in a new way, to really give students the opportunity to work with faculty and to give faculty the opportunity to develop their own skills. The second component of our grant was to do a scholarship program to intentionally go out and look for people who are not traditionally being seen in our coding courses, whether that's because of race, gender, whatever the issues, or whether it's even their major. We have a lot of majors that just don't participate in our technology courses. And to give scholarships to help pay for that first course to get them started on the journey to see how technology might be applied in the public interest within their own discipline. So if they're coming from English, or if they're coming from political science, which is a very big major at our university, how they can see technology to get applied in their discipline as well.
Thank you. Carlos, it seems that we have you back. So
I
can you tell us a little bit about your project?
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you for being part of this wonderful family that PTUN has been building for the last years. Well, our project, we call it Geographic Information Systems for Environmental Awareness and Community Engagement, GISEC. It has mainly three parts. First of all, we have developed an academic pathway based on geographic information systems. Then we have created a project and research platform to enhance the evaluation of the risks under natural risks, the natural hazards. And thirdly, we have been working on networking with the local governments and also community organizations. In relation to the academic pathway, we have created, first of all, a college credit certificate with dual enrollment for high school students that can come to the college and do the first 2 years in information technology and GIS. So we are bringing from high school to college, and then they can continue to complete the pathway and to obtain the Bachelor in Sciences in Information Technology. And now we are developing the articulation with Florida International University for them to be able to complete a graduate certificate. This process includes also faculty development. And for the part of the project platform and research platform, we have developing skills and methodologies to assess the risk. This is something I would need more time to talk about. But in fact, we are being able to improve a lot of information that is furnished by the FEMA's risk analysis, because we incorporate local information that does not exist normally in the public data. And finally, thanks to this project, we're now belonging to the strategy for Miami-Dade County for the resilience building as part of something that is called the MetroLab network. That includes the offices of resilience of several cities in Miami-Dade, and also the University of Miami, Florida International University, and us at Miami-Dade College.
Thank you. There's a lot of information, but for our attendees, as you can see, our projects are really diverse and focus on different things, but all within the public interest technology umbrella. So I'm going to go ahead and ask a couple of questions that reflect some of the questions that we have been receiving from grantees. I'm going to go quickly through each of our panelists, and then we're going to have our general questions and open it for questions from the attendees. So I'm going to start with Deidre, actually. So we know that the project is UC Berkeley Algorithmic Justice, and your project is focused on skill building and career pathways on that specific topic. So how did you shape your application to reflect that impact for the network?
Sure. So I actually wanted to maybe talk about why we chose to center it in that way first. My colleague Jenna Burrell and I started the Algorithmic Fairness and Opacity Working Group. We're in I guess we're going to start our 4th year, maybe. Definitely just finishing up our 3rd year. And one of the things that we noticed almost immediately in our first round of PhD applicants after we created AFOG, an increase, we believe many applying PhD students were mentioning AFOG as a place that they wanted to work. And a relatively high proportion of the students who were mentioning AFOG and AFOG-related faculty and other scholars from other departments as a place that they wanted to connect were from underrepresented groups. And we realized we were intentionally trying to make our work more legible and less technology-centered, more kind of justice, values-centered. And we saw the School of Information, I'm sure like many of the technical departments that are represented here, we sometimes struggle in attracting a really diverse applicant pool, particularly for things like our PhD program. And so we watched as the presence of AFOG really, I think, made our work and our school become more legible to a different group of individuals, and it really shifted some of the ways that some of the applicant pools. And this is true also in our master's degree program, which tends to be very diverse because for a whole host of reasons, but a lot of the diversity often comes from international communities, not just domestic communities. So when we were thinking about the pipeline issue and public interest technology, as somebody has been in this field for something like 30 years now, having started my career in the public interest advocacy world, it was really apparent to me that we needed to intervene earlier if we wanted to cultivate a set of scholars that were going to be able to represent and make sure everybody was at the table. And so we really wanted to focus on the undergraduate population. And so we identified some other colleagues on campus. I mentioned Cal Nerds in particular, that already are trying to cultivate and support diverse scholars at Berkeley. We have a very diverse student body in our undergraduate population along many dimensions, and trying to help them cultivate all the technical skills and support them through the technical curriculum. We also thought that was a great opportunity to introduce them to kind of the fact that they could practice in technology and in a public interest oriented frame. And so for us, the justice framework and the focus on algorithms is in part, it's core to our research agenda as part of our public interest research agenda work, but it also seems to attract a much more diverse group of people to the table, disciplinarily as well as demographically. And that's really what we're aiming to do, because we want to make sure that we have master's students and PhD students that are just as representative of all the communities that need to be part of this conversation as our undergraduate student body.
Thank you, Deidre. It's really amazing work that you guys are doing over there. So let me turn it up to Ryan now. So PidLit, amazing name, is by design an interdisciplinary project because it's housed in your institution's library. So how did that shape your application?
Well, Alberto, I love this question, and it prompted me to think about PidLit in a new way as a result of this question. So thank you for that. So yes, 2 words: interdisciplinary. PidLit is very interdisciplinary. We have been, my colleagues, Mandy Swigart-Hobaugh, who is the co-director of the program, and our PidLit fellow, Ashley Rockwell here at Georgia State, have been meeting with so many campus departments, units around this, and there's a lot of enthusiasm about it. And I think because it's from the library, or it's coming from the library, we're kind of like a crossroads, or a place where different departments and initiatives can come together. It's almost like the library is like that third place. I think it's been described in a community where it's not home, it's not your lab or your office or your department, but it's a third place where you can go and have a cup of coffee. And now, of course, the pandemic changed everything. We're meeting with boxes on a screen mostly, but I think the idea of being from the library has really helped us build that enthusiasm for the project. And I'll just say there's so many things to unpack here with this question, but I would encourage anyone on the call who is thinking about a public interest technology Pitt UN project to maybe reach out to your university library, reach out to the librarian for your college or school or department, or even the dean of libraries, and just throw some of this out, because when I was first introduced to Pitt and Pitt UN, I immediately thought that some of the stuff about technology for the public good and all that really kind of resonated with me as a librarian. I think libraries are important places, and we are there to find these new areas to explore with others. Couple of other just points. The interdisciplinary part of it. So and I think this may be our PidLit fellow maybe influencing and inspiring this. We are really focusing on data literacy across all majors. So even the arts and humanities and the disciplines where you don't normally introduce data concepts in the first year, or they fall flat. The idea that data is everywhere, and being a critical thinker, and it can actually inform and inspire you and empower you to go, maybe possibly if you are interested in the arts, into nonprofit work or museum work or whatever. So that's one thing that I hadn't thought about when we were launching the project, but as we bring in more and more colleagues from our College of the Arts and from our other disciplines besides the STEM fields, it's very exciting to see those new connections. In fact, I think we have a call tomorrow with an English faculty member who's now leading an initiative on campus, College to Career, about ways we can bring PIDLIT into that. So very exciting. So to sum up, and I'm glad to answer more questions about it, I think the library is an ideal place to incubate these ideas. And if you're on your campus and you haven't been to your main campus library recently in the fall, when all the students come back, go over there and check out what's going on. There's exciting stuff happening, and reach out to your librarians and find out, if you have any ideas that you're thinking about, you may find a good partner over there.
Thank you, Brian. Yes, it's all about learning where to get more support within your institutions. I'm going to turn to Monad right now. So again, your project, the Pitt Convention Career Fair, involves including several actors within your university, but also other institutions. So how did you approach that diversity in the application? And what do you think was the biggest hurdle when developing that application?
Thank you for that question, Alberto. And it's so exciting to hear what people are up to, how projects develop. So there's one thing I'm going to say right up front, the Pitt UN community is wonderful. All right, so the Pitt Convention and Career Fair is kind of a little octopus, right? It has so many arms everywhere. And that really is a reflection of how Pitt kind of lives within our institution, NYU. There are a ton of people who are doing Pitt-related work in all sorts of schools and departments and different kinds of positions with different kinds of focus areas. And they are kind of assembled in a network that we call the NYU Public Interest Technology Alliance. And so that's really just a natural reflection of what is going on. So we kind of build on that, and we also take that idea, kind of the octopus idea, and have built that into the proposal and the sort of mission for the event, for the project. This is very important to also get students on board who are our ultimate target group here, because they want and need to understand that Pitt by default is interdisciplinary, and Brian has just spoken about that, and that faculty also do this kind of work interdisciplinarily, and that this work, when you go out into the field, also is an interdisciplinary field and an interdisciplinary practice, and that sometimes is a little tricky. So bringing all of that together into sort of a coherent narrative was our focus. The other thing is that what is really important in kind of reflecting that diversity and bringing that in is a lot of communication, talking to people, reaching out, understanding their work, understanding student concerns and interests, talking to educators. I'm an educator myself. I teach as a social scientist at the engineering school. So kind of being tapped into what is going on, but also being tapped into what is going on, in the professional field. We've seen a lot happening over the past year and a half in the field of responsible tech. We've, for example, had the firing of Dr. Timnit Gebru, lots of stuff happening around that. So how do we engage with these kinds of conversations? That's something we will and want to focus. So the biggest hurdle we face at the moment is not just a hurdle, it's also an opportunity, which is that originally we planned this to be, traditional in person with a reception and a party, and we had travel scholarships for students that we could bring them to New York. And because we are going to be virtual, this has become much, 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 much bigger, because now we can really bring everybody in, and we will bring everybody in who is a member of the network. We also have some public elements. So it just got really big all of a sudden, which is exciting, but also means a lot more work for us. So we actually hired two producers who are going to help us with that work. And we are really kind of getting up early these days and really putting things together and doing that outreach work. We're also not challenged, but we have to be very mindful of the technical infrastructure and, of course, issues around equitability. We want to make sure that actually when we say everybody, everybody can actually come in. So that's something we're working on very hard right now, that we can make that happen. And I'm gonna stop right here, and I'm happy to talk more about the project.
No, thank you, Mona, for that. And I mean, some of those problems are good problems to have. I'm going to turn it a little bit to Ryan next. So GW, George Washington University, had 3 projects chosen for 2020. So how did you coordinate within the institution, and how are you collaborating within the campus with your project?
Great, thanks. So our campus sounds somewhat like Mona's in that we have a lot going on around public interest technology, but it's not always that connected. And Pitt UN has really allowed us to start to create a hub where faculty from international affairs, from all our different departments, including our engineering and our physics, can come together to look at these issues. So at our campus, once we joined the Pitt UN group, we started to exchange a lot of emails. And for the call for proposals last year, we started early and we had people just share their ideas. It started as an email list, and then it grew into a Google Doc where we were sharing ideas about what things we might want to do. At the beginning, I'd say there were 7, 8 different ideas. Those kind of got condensed. Some people started to combine theirs. I know, for example, that some colleagues in the international affairs teamed up with others in the law school to put their 2 ideas together. And they ended up having a successful Pitt UN proposal as well. So then we did an internal competition. At our university, whenever there's a limited number of applicants, we have to do an internal competition through our Office of Research. So leading up to that, everyone had to do like a 1-page summary of what they were planning to propose. And that then went to an internal review panel, which met one morning over coffee, looked at them and decided which were going to be the 3. And they came back to some of us with questions about how we align to the Pitt UN mission. I'd say one thing that we did a pretty good job of focusing on, the person who was kind of leading the conversation kept taking us back to, how does this speak to what Pitt UN is trying to accomplish? And how is it going to help the network? So what were the give back components of that? And so, for example, with our idea, initially, we didn't have that give back component that we added in as we got that internal feedback. And this was like late May, early June last year. So before the July 15th. So we added a component where, based on what we're doing, we're then produce a guide so that other schools can do similar. And then we'll make that available to the other member institutions. So we did a lot of bouncing back and forth, trying to collaborate, trying to see which were the ones that we thought best spoke to the mission of Pitt UN before we went to the external competition. And I think we had really good proposals because of that process.
Thank you, and well, it paid off. Thank you for that. Carlos, turning it back to you now. So I know that Miami-Dade is a great example of a project that actually requested funds for the consecutive year. So you had one in 2019, you had one in 2020. How did you approach this second process, and how did you adapt your application? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, the main thing that we did is to expand the project. For the first year, we created a college credit certificate for the dual enrollment with the students. And for the second year, we advanced in that program for the AES programs and also for the BS. And now we're working for an articulation for graduate certificate for the students. And we continue doing some faculty development. So first thing was to grow in the pathway and also contact institutions, local institutions, to open opportunities for internship for the students. On the other side, on the methodology and research and project learning platform development that we have been doing. In the first year, we understood the problem, we created a methodology, we understood how FEMA does it, and we found the gaps, the things that we could improve. And in the second year, we applied that, and also we are expanding the target areas, which are huge, because at the end, we need to go all around Miami-Dade County, and we're flying drones around, and this is very big. So we will not be able to complete all the tasks in the second year. And thirdly, the other axis that we're working on is the community engagement and the local government's relationship with them. So we are growing in the networking with them. And one of the results that we are already part of some other projects that we're doing together, either with the Office of Resilience of Miami-Dade County and also with the universities themselves, with the Florida International University and the University of Miami. Remember that the main thing that we want to do here is to raise awareness, to create the pathway for the students, the educational pathway, but also to raise awareness of the risks of the environmental issues that we do have in Miami, which are great because we do have hurricanes, flooding, sea level rise, but we're also working with earthquakes. So at the end, when we work with the students, they raise the awareness of the problems that they need. And the next step that we're moving forward is to create an app on social vulnerability for the students to relate the social vulnerability to the environmental vulnerability too. So as you might understand, when people are more vulnerable from the social point of view, the risks are even higher for them. So these are the way this project does not stop. It continues just like any reasonable research program that produces results and understands needs to continue working on.
Well, that's a really good way to go into that second year, just growing the process of thank you, Carlos. I'm just going to ask a general question. I'm going to ask someone to answer it first, and maybe we can popcorn it around the Zoom room. So, and Mona already talked to us a little bit about this, but what was the biggest challenge in pulling together a team and envisioning the project when you were building out those applications? And I'm going to start with, actually, I'm going to start with Carlos again. So again, what was the biggest challenge when you were putting the application and when you were putting together the team and envisioning the project?
Well, building the team, in fact, was mainly based in previous relationships and sometimes friendships also that we do have for working together for several years. So I wouldn't say that that was the main problem that we had. For us, the main problem has been the COVID-19 situation. We need to have students coming from the high school. They are the main feeders for our program. But some of the students, we specifically work in very poor areas. And some of those students did not have access to computers. So as they normally have the support in the schools, and I couldn't go to the school. So this is something that we're beginning to solve as COVID is allowing us to go back to normal. So we're relaunching this program, this part of the program, this coming fall. And I think we're solving this because we already have 20 students to start this cohort. But that was the main issue that we have had. And also, assembling the team means to prepare to do faculty development. And most of the faculty, they're very busy. And it's hard for them to motivate them to be part of this new program. But we have been doing it slowly, but we are achieving those goals hardly. I can tell you, it's not easy, but we're moving forward.
Thank you, Carlos, and I'm sure that we all relate to that specific problem has given us quite a few headaches, right, Deidre? So, what was your biggest challenge when pulling together a team, and also focusing a little bit on the application, Deidre?
Sure. I think the biggest challenge is putting together, so we have some of our partners are very focused on equity and diversity issues. And the question of like building technical on-ramps as well as bringing in kind of the critical assessment piece in a way that is super integrated across the three organizations. So the D Lab, they run tons of workshops, and they have some that are like very public interest tech oriented. And CalNerds runs lots of boot camps. The one that they're doing as part of our programming is the STEMinist boot camp. That is a 2-day boot camp that they call it the sandwich model, where they do some career development work, they do some very hands-on technical training, and they also do community building. And because we're trying to build a cohort, we want the students to kind of feel that all 3 of these organizations are integrated in this work. And at AFOG, we have historically been a program that's been focused on really PhDs, postdocs, and faculty. I think the reason it's an important model for the Pitt field is, I think we all know that our academic institutions tend to be incredibly siloed in departments and disciplines. And so, because PITUN work and really being a member of this field requires that interdisciplinary orientation, we created AFOG to pull in. We have PhD students and postdocs and faculty from sociology, from law, from computer science. Sometimes our postdoc coming in is from rhetoric, from engineering and from environmental studies. So we have this very diverse group. But how to give the undergraduates that same kind of integrated experience, pulling on the strengths of these 3 organizations. So the huge benefit of PITUN is that it gave us a thing to center a conversation around. But the kind of figuring out exactly what each of us brings to the table and how to put them together in an integrated programming for students, I think that's the thing that's both the biggest challenge, but it's also the most exciting. I mean, my colleague, particular Diana Lanzara at CalNerds, is just incredibly thoughtful and skilled at thinking about inclusive environments and really bringing like a really strong sense of equity-based pedagogy into the room. And so it's been a tremendous opportunity, but getting time on our calendars and really we all have our own programs, and figuring out how to create something that's integrated in a really meaningful way for the students definitely took some time.
Thank you. Well, it seems that we already have in the room another solution for that. The model in George Washington actually made them and forced them to collaborate when they were prepping inside. So I just want to ask you, Ryan, again, what was the biggest challenge when pulling together teams for that for your project, and how did you overcome it?
So I think that there weren't that many challenges. Our team is small, so that helps. But we are so I come out of the School of Ed, and my colleague who's the PI on the grant, is in our engineering school. There were some technical challenges in terms of how our grant funding mechanisms, as Deidre said, are very siloed, and how to get budgets across multiple schools were technical challenges. I'd say the bigger challenge that we had that I alluded to earlier, we're taking our initial ideas and then seeing how those fit with what are the goals of the Pitt UN group. We had several iterations where we were close, but then we would get feedback from colleagues that would say, when I read the goals of what Pitt UN is trying to accomplish, this doesn't quite align as well as I think it could or should. So then we would go back and we would again look to say, how are we helping achieve what we want to achieve as faculty and as researchers, but at the same time aligning that closely to what Pitt UN is trying to accomplish at the broader societal level. What are these challenges around getting students with skills into public service? And how does our project fit nicely into that space? And how are we helping to accomplish that in the long term by starting these things early at our university?
Thank you. I'm going to go back to Mona. You already talked about this of that big challenge since COVID-19, but were there any other challenges when, again, putting up the application and pulling up together the team for the convention?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I can just echo what the group has said so far, and perhaps add to that, that the academy is not necessarily designed to incentivize faculty to do this kind of work. And that's a big obstacle, or can be a big obstacle. How do you get, the folks you want to collaborate with you, or you want on the project, or, to at least participate in the project in some way, when they don't have to advance their own careers, or it doesn't seem apparent to them, or it's not research. And that kind of obstacle got bigger as we all got, overwhelmed by all the things we had to do to keep the university going during the pandemic. I think that is fair to say that that's a big obstacle, and was a challenge. But again, I can just echo what Carlos said. Personal relationships really matter in that way, and maintaining those relationships and talking to people and engaging, sharing work, and just trying to keep excited about ideas, and sort of keep it going, is certainly very important. And this is, again, why I value the Pitt UN network so much, because that sort of social element really is a focus, and that really helps. The sort of field building mission that I see in Pitt UN broadly, but also very much in my own project, is about really creating something new together with all the different projects, with all the different ideas, and that I see that reflected in my own institution and in my project. But yeah, that certainly is not always easy, and requires a whole lot of quote unquote soft skill that is not necessarily rewarded by the dinosaur that is the academy.
Well, there are several challenges to working in the academy, but we have had really good examples of people doing the work. Here you are. Brian, last to ask this question, what was the biggest challenge for you guys in when pulling together a team and envisioning that project as you made your application?
Well, Alberto, I would have, if you had asked me several months ago, I would have said time. We need more time. We need more time. But you hear that all the time, and that's you'll get it done. If you're committed to the project, you'll get it done. Now, the biggest challenge so far for us, our project is a campus-wide interdisciplinary initiative, again focusing on first-year students, and we are passionate and believe in this concept of public interest data literacy. And others do as well. There's a lot of collaborators, and our list is growing. On our grant, we listed probably 15 people, and we can now list 25 or 30 people who would love to collaborate. But the challenge for us, again, as you focus on maybe an educational program, a general education program at your university, is for it not to be perceived as an add-on or something more. It's something we want to integrate into the curriculum, not add on. So we recently had a meeting with one of our directors of a first year orientation program at the university. And your universities are like ours. In that first year, they try to introduce concepts like financial literacy and digital literacy. And I'm not sure what digital literacy is sometimes, there are many definitions for that. Depends on who you got funding from, what company gave you money defines what digital literacy is for your university. But there's all these components of the first year experience for a student. And our challenge has been for others to not see PIDLIT or public interest data literacy as an add-on, but it's something that's integrated. So we teach critical thinking skills and writing and digital literacy, but including these ideas of thinking critically about data and sources of data and how to analyze data and how data can be manipulated and how misinformation abounds. Those are good skills for a first year student to have. And so as we present this, again, not this is something more, but this is something that's kind of integral to everything we're already doing. So I don't know if that's exactly what you're asking, but we went into this thinking this has intrinsic value that the world will get behind and will love. And others did feel that way, but they said, but wait a minute, I can't give a class session to this right now, right? But I'm very encouraged about conversations we're having right now that we will be able to find ways to integrate PIDLIT into the general education program going forward.
Thank you, Brian. And I just want to tell our attendees, we would love for you to have some questions, so just drop it in the chat or in the Q&A at the bottom of the Zoom channel. So I'm just going to ask some of the questions that have been coming up. So, and also using one from our panelists actually. So taking my outsider hat on, I want to ask you, what do you think got you funded? It is a really great question brought by Ryan, but I think it will give us a really good conversation for the couple minutes that we have left. And Carlos, I'm going to start with you. So what do you think got you funded?
Well, good question. And never, when the questions are so good, the answers shall never fulfill your needs, your question needs. Well, but I think that because there's several things. One, the engagement with the people who really need this. Second, the reality of Miami, in which we do have real problems of sea rise level and so on. And also the way we are creating this pathway to create, to take care of underrepresented groups, to support their growth and give them the opportunity to be part of a job area on geographic information systems, having the skills also to understand and to manage the risks, the environmental risks. So the understanding of the whole thing, the contribution to the community, and also the links that we're developing with the local governments who are recognizing our work and they're asking us to do more things. So the network itself also could be. So I didn't answer you. I just turned the question back to you, but that's a great question. And you're the guys who should answer it because you're the ones giving the support for us.
But I said I'm taking my outside hat here and just asking as someone from the attendees. I'm gonna actually ask the same question to Deidre. Looking back to it, what do you think got you funded? What were the strengths in your application?
I think we were building off 3 programs that already have somewhat of a track record. So we weren't trying to spin out something completely new. We had some infrastructure in place. It's hard to know why you succeeded because you're not part of the grant. But my guess is that it was also unique in that we were really pulling together people with different expertise and not just faculty with different expertise, but like the Cal Nerd Center is really oriented around supporting this diverse group of students who are coming to Berkeley who want to pursue careers that are STEM or STEM adjacent. And I think that, having faculty and folks who are really focused on students' educational achievement and retention and support, and then the D Lab that brings in this very diverse group of people who are focused on really supporting thoughtful uses of data and helping with research design and application. So I think that we had a pretty compelling set of organizations that were all saying, we want to collaborate on this. And I also think that we, I hope, did a good job of explaining how this would be a useful model for the PIT field, which at Berkeley we now call PyTune, just so you know, because our undergraduates Pi, and we are interviewing our first cohort of what are called our in a Berkeley tradition, our Fiat Justice Scholars, and this will be an undergraduate cohort. We think of about 12 to 15 students, and our goal. So I was a public interest law scholar at Georgetown, one of the very early cohorts there. And I can tell you that the kind of cohort building community, being connected to people at, Public Citizen Litigation Clinic and the ACLU and the Environmental Defense Fund and other organizations that were doing public interest law, and getting to hear from people about their career pathways, getting to hear from them about their work, and then also having some of those folks come in, like my PILS seminar was led by David Vladeck, who was at the time the head of Public Citizens Litigation Group. And having somebody who had this trajectory in the field come in and talk to us about what it really meant to practice was incredibly meaningful. But it was that cohort, we are still connected. And we're trying to really build that cohort because we think that it's really important for students to have that sort of support. So I also think that we were building on models that we've seen work, I think, in public interest law, and trying to think about what it would mean in the context of an intentionally interdisciplinary program. And so I think maybe, there was a sense of like history informed programmatic design that might have been useful too, but I don't know, somebody who was on the committee could tell you better.
Thank you. So just to bring this back, the request for proposals for this challenge actually has a lot of weight in partnership building and in equity, diversity, and inclusion. So it's completely resonant with what Carlos and Deidre said. Connecting both internally and externally, and with communities is one it's definitely a best practice. Mona, I think you're going to react the same way, but what was that thing that you think was the good thing to bring to the challenge?
I love that question. I think it's very helpful for folks who will apply this year. So good thought. So I think the thing that made our application interesting is that it does a lot with very little. So it's really about building community, building the network, bringing in, as we already said, external partners, but also build the field within our reach, our immediate reach, and center the students into something very practical, something that is very kind of engaging, hopefully fun, and I think was a very clear proposition. I think there was not a lot of ambiguity. I hope we'll see how it turns out, but that's my guess.
I'm sure it will turn out perfectly. Ryan, same question. What do you think got you through?
I think building on what Mona said, trying to have a rather simple story that the reviewers can easily pick up on. I think many of my NSF proposals have failed for this reason. They just get too complex. The reviewers can't figure out what are you doing and what is the impact of what you're doing. So I think have a simple story. Of course, price it right. Don't overprice if it's not going to take that much. Trying to come in at a good pricing point is important. Always a challenge in research, and universities are always pushing us to do it a little bit more expensively to get more indirect. But think about what it really takes to accomplish the goals that you're trying to accomplish. And then that collaboration with the network. We also had Howard University as part of ours, which is another network member that's local to us. So thinking about how you can connect and then how you contribute back to the network. At least my understanding interpretation is we are all trying 1,000 little things, and then we're supposed to be sharing them and working together so that others can try to mimic what has worked in other places as best possible. So think about that component as you put your proposal together.
Thank you, Ryan. Brian, last answer for the last question. Again, what was
I'm honored to get the last crack at this. So yes, I will say, like any good student, read the request for proposals, read all the information. We are a relatively new member of Pitt UN at Georgia State University, and I think I was approached to be a part of our campus group around Pitt UN because our missions are so similar, and it was a no-brainer for all, I think, for all of us that we should be a part of this. but we read everything from both New America, Pitt UN, including all the documents that were shared, and were tried to, in our proposal, to link as many of the different components as possible. So I know everything you've mentioned about diversity and underrepresented groups and promoting the public good, but also the career pipeline part and all that. We tried to connect as many of those dots as possible. And again, I would echo what Ryan said, try to be clear and be sympathetic with your reviewer. If it may be a complex idea, but try to make it as simple as you can. So anyway, thanks again for the opportunity.
No, thank you, Brian. And for all the attendees and our future viewers, remember as well that this third year, we are any of the priority areas is welcome. Educational offerings, career pipeline and placement, faculty and institution building, and strengthening the Pitt University network are the things that are guiding us. So I just want to thank you again for joining me in this little talk, and I want to stress this again. If any of the viewers, and I see a lot of them that we already know each other, but if you want any other connection with other members or with past grantees, please let us know, and we will be more than happy to make any connection that we can. I'm sure that the panelists that are here with me today are more than excited to talk a little bit more about their projects and help you in your process. So again, thank you all for joining, and we'll see you in the next one. And please let us know if there's anything that we can do to continue to build this network. Thank you.